Hey yo, this is Mark's Max Muscle, and this is my favorite bodybuilder of all time. He is Robby Robinson, and he is the inspiration behind Mark's Max Muscle. If you look back to my very first ever video, you'll notice that it's actually a Robinson video. I went on to do another one featuring the Joe Weider bust incidents. So this is Robinson's third feature here at Mark's Max Muscle. And this will be just basically a more thorough profile on his bodybuilding career. I'm sure I'll be doing many other videos based on Robinson in the future. But anyway, let's dive right in. Robinson would receive his first notable win in 1974, taking that year's Mr. Southeastern USA contest. He would follow that up with a win at the Mr. Southern States contest. Robbie would get a huge win in 1975, taking the overall title at that year's IFBB Mr. America contest. He would go on to win the Mr. Florida contest that same year. With two big wins like that, Robinson was a prime suspect to claim the 1975 IFBB Universe title. He actually won his weight class at that event, but found himself in the second place position for the overall title, right underneath Ken Waller. I find it very hard to believe that Robinson lost to Waller. Anyway, after his loss to Ken Waller, Robinson jumped right back in the winner's circle, taking the 1975 Mr. World title. 1976 was a great year for Robbie. Started off with an overall title win at that year's Mr. International. The Mr. International title was quite a prestigious title to win back then. Now, the only thing that would top this off would be to win the Universe title. The 76 Universe was fully stacked with talent, complete with a whopping 50 competitors. Wow! First, Robinson would place first in his class, ahead of Mike Menzer. Then he went on to claim the overall title. Robby Robinson was now Mr. Universe. And now he was ready for the Olympia stage. As we all may know, Frank Zane won the title that year at the Mr. Olympia contest. And of course, Robby Robinson would place second. Must have been somewhat disappointing. But in actuality, to place second at your Mr. Olympia debut is actually pretty outstanding. Robinson would begin 1978 with a win at that year's Night of Champions contest, placing ahead of Roy Callender. At the 1978 Mr. Olympia, Robinson brought an outstanding package. Look at the arms on him. Wow. And take a look at the back. I don't think Frank Zane could ever compete with the back on Robby Robinson. So when the judges announced once again that Robinson placed second to Zane, Robinson picked Zane up and gave him an old-fashioned spinebuster slam, ending Zane's career. Of course, I'm only joking, and nothing like that ever happened. Anyway, Robinson would finish off 1978 with a win at that year's Professional World Cup, placing ahead of Danny Padilla. Robinson would once again place ahead of Padilla to win the 1979 Night of Champions. This event also featured Mike Menzer and Boyer Coe. Jeez, Danny Padilla was on fire back then, placing ahead of those two big names. But unable to beat Robinson, of course. Robbie would receive a disappointing third-place finish at the 1979 Mr. Olympia contest. But as usual, Robbie would cap the year off with a win, this time taking the Pittsburgh Pro Invitational title. 1980 was a disappointing year for Robinson. It was actually the first year since he had turned pro that he hadn't received a first-place finish. He placed second to Chris Dickerson at the Grand Prix California, and second to Chris once again at that year's Night of Champions. After a disappointing year like that, Robinson made the move to the NABBA promotion. And in 1981, Robbie would win the NABBA Pro Mr. Universe title, one of the biggest bodybuilding titles in the whole world at one time. Robinson would compete for that year's WABBA Pro World Cup. He placed third, losing to Serge Nabret and the winner that year, Sergio Oliva. In 1982, Robbie made his way back to the IFBB. He was welcomed back with a last place finish at that year's Night of Champions. This just goes to show you what happens when you compete for a rival federation. Things improved slightly for Robinson in 1983 with a fourth place finish at the World Pro Invitational. From 84 to 86, Robinson placed pretty low. Well, for Robby Robinson standards anyway. So in 1987, I believe Robinson improved quite a bit that year. He had a couple of second place finishes at the Grand Prix France and again at the Grand Prix Germany. He lost to Rich Gaspari in both cases. At the Mr. Olympia that year, Robinson would shock the field with an impressive fifth place finish. Quite a feat to say you're the fifth best bodybuilder in the planet at 40 years of age. Robbie would compete an impressive 9 times in 1988, and after a 6-year drought, he pulled off a huge win at that year's Niagara Falls Pro Invitational. He defeated the likes of Phil Hill, Bob Paris, Mike Ashley, and Tony Pearson. 1989 brought a second-place finish to Robbie at that year's Arnold Classic. He once again would lose to Rich Gaspari. He would also place second at the 1989 Grand Prix Melbourne, losing out to Gary Stridham. But in true Robinson fashion, he would cap off 89 with a big win at that year's World Pro Championships. Not only that, but he would avenge his loss to Gary Stridham, as Gary placed second at that event. Robinson received a fourth place finish at the 1990 Arnold Classic, along with a fifth place finish at that year's Night of Champions. At the 1991 Muscle Fest Grand Prix, now in his mid-40s, Robinson would not only prove that he could still compete with these young hungry lions like Thierry Pastel, Bob Paris, and Mike Ashley, but he could also reign victorious as he would take that title. At the 1992 Ironman Pro Invitational, Robinson placed second to Vince Taylor. Robinson would also have an outstanding showing at the Night of Champions that same year. He placed third among 29 other competitors. Among those 29 guys included Milo Sursev, Nasser El-Sambadi, and Ronnie Coleman. That's right, Robby Robinson beat Ronnie Coleman. Robinson would only compete once in 1993 at that year's Ironman Pro Invitational. He placed 8th. By now, at 47 years of age, it was very unlikely that Robbie would ever fulfill his dream of taking home a Sandow, along with an Olympia title. That is, until Joe Weider introduced the Masters Olympia contest in 1994. This was for competitors of 40 years of age and older. Even in these rules, Robinson was still giving up quite a few years to some of these guys. The 94 Masters Olympia was fully stacked with classic competitors. Guys like Bill Grant, Ed Corney, Chris Dickerson, Boyer Coe, and perhaps the most dangerous of all, Lou Ferrigno. The much younger Ferrigno looked massive, and he was actually quite conditioned, perhaps the best shape of his life. Of course, Robby Robinson himself also looked like $1 million. Well, that is, if he wanted to take a pay cut. He looked like about $10 million, if you ask me. The judges narrowed it down to Lou Ferrigno and Robby Robinson himself. And when his name was announced, Robby Robinson was the winner. He was now considered an Olympia champion, complete with Sandow Trophy. Robbie would place second at the 95 Masters Olympia, losing out to Sonny Schmidt. At the 96 Masters Olympia, Robbie slipped down to 4th place. But with guys like Vince Taylor winning this title, a 4th place position was not that bad. Robbie would win the 50-plus division at the Masters Olympia in '97. At the 1998 Masters Arnold Classic, Robinson placed a very respectable 4th place. At the 1999 Masters Olympia, with no 50-plus division that year, Robinson would still remarkably place 6th among 17 other competitors. With the return of the 50-plus division at the 2000 Masters Olympia, Robinson would receive his final first-place finish. He competed once more at the 2001 Masters Olympia. He placed a very respectable 4th place. Till this very day, Robinson continues to inspire generations of would-be bodybuilders. Now, at 72 years young, Robinson is still in prime condition and looks like he's ready to take on anyone in the bodybuilding stage. He is Robby Robinson, a bodybuilding legend.